what's up, everybody? You know what time it is. Your boy Jeffrey L. Boney here for another hot edition of Real Talk Junkies. So glad that you joined us on today. As always, we're going to have some informative discussion, hot topics, great information for you and yours. That's why I always encourage you to share the link with your friends, your family, your foes, your enemies. It doesn't matter. Everybody needs to check out Real Talk Junkies on today. I always encourage you to check out the Forward Times website so that you can get the latest news for and about African Americans here in this country and across the globe and the African diaspora. That's at forwardtimes.com. Again, forwardtimes.com. And of course, you can dialogue with yours truly and connect with me offline at jeffreylboney.com and get the latest book, Don't Argue With Me, a no-nonsense approach to the issues in the Black community. And as you're sharing the chat and sharing the link today with everybody, also make sure you can chime in on the chat, share your thoughts, ask your questions, and let's get it in. You know, I want to wish everybody a happy new year. And as we're talking about the new year, we're starting the second semester for many individuals as far as public school or school or whatnot. And education is so important in this country. And it's one thing that we continuously need to emphasize, especially in the African-American community. You cannot afford not to have an education here in this country. So many things we get, I guess, thrown under the bus, we lose out on because of a lack of quality education. And so joining me today to talk about the significance, the importance of education, especially in 2023 at the start of this new year. We cannot emphasize it enough. And this is a great way to start 2023 to talk about the importance and the significance of education amongst our African-American, our Black youth. I'm talking about none other than Associate Dean, and he is the head national recruiter for the University of Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner. And I'm talking about none other than C. Don Bradley. Let's give it up for C. Don Bradley, y'all. Yeah. Welcome to Real Talk Junkies on the day. That's a nice pen you got on there, man.
Hey, man.
That's a nice pen you got.
Man, this pen right here means a lot to me, man.
Okay.
Glad you recognized it, man.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna get into that a little bit.
No, let's talk a little bit about this pen too. I like that.
What you know? No,
man. You know what I'm saying? I can't do that right here. But
education. I know you know about education.
I know about education. You know what I'm saying? I might not know a lot about this pen. You know what I'm saying? But I'm always willing to learn, though.
Well, tell me about this education piece. We talked about the significance and the importance of education amongst our Black youth. One of the things that I've noticed, man, is there's been this attack on inner city schools, a lot of schools getting closed, a lot of kids dropping out of school, a lot of kids not even going to college anymore, pursuing careers and trades, which is nothing wrong with that. Everybody's not fit for college, but there are a lot of universities, colleges out there that are looking for qualified African-American youth, offering scholarships even to try to attend. So what do you see the state of education right now in 2023 amongst the African-American youth?
Man, that's a great question, Moni. And I'll start out by saying that within our community, definitely it's valued. What we haven't done a good job, and I know we're working towards, is making the kids understand why it's valued. See, we tend to kind of talk in, yes, we got to value education. You need an education. What we're missing, Boney, is the why piece.
Okay.
Why is this important?
Okay.
How does this set you up in life to get to and be who you want to be in life? So until we get back to answering the why question, why is this thing important? Why is it important for us to go into these public schools? Why is it important for us to understand that the education process was not set up or designed for us to be successful? So if you take students and you put them in that mindset, and we teach them from the thought of, we don't know if you really get this, then the students ask the question like, why am I here? So I tell families, administrators all the time, we got to get back to the so what.
Gotcha.
That's important.
So let's talk about that why. You know, you've been doing this for quite a while, and actually, you serve. What's your role at University?
I'm the Associate Dean of National Recruitment. I head up diversity initiatives.
Okay.
I go all over the country trying to recruit students who look like us.
Okay.
And give them an opportunity to come to
the University of Oklahoma.
To come to the University of Oklahoma.
Gotcha.
To come to the University of Oklahoma, and it's so interesting because I'm excited to hear the number of students who are looking at HBCUs. I am not a proud graduate, but I am a proud supporter.
Gotcha.
Because my thought is that wherever you can get that education from, it's a valued education. And it makes such a difference in one's life.
Yeah.
So yes, I went to PWI, but again, I am a proud supporter of HBCUs. But I want to make sure though that kids have opportunities.
Right. And I have I guess an interesting dynamic. I attended a PWI, University of Oklahoma,
Yes.
with you at the same time.
Yeah,
around the same
absolutely.
time, as well as Texas Southern University. So best of both worlds in my perspective, and I see value in both.
Right.
I see value in both, but I'm glad you shared that about the importance of valuing going to an HBCU and supporting that. So let's go back to the why, though. So why should education be valued in our Black homes, in our Black community?
Because unlike anything else in life, it's one thing that cannot be taken from you.
Mm-hmm.
I look how we value athletics, for example. Big athletic supporter. But all it takes, as we saw the other night, an injury, a freak accident, and that talent can be lost.
Yes.
The talent of enhancing that brain power, that education, no matter what happens in life, that can't be taken from you.
Yeah.
So the why is, for whatever you plan to do in life, it's going to be on this realm of education.
Yeah.
And you got to understand it and you got to get it. And it can never be taken from you. No matter what happens now, Brother Boney, people can say whatever they want to say. You got that degree.
Yes.
That cannot be taken from you.
Right. And even if you don't have a degree per se,
Right.
like, education it doesn't just define you based off of a piece of paper. You can learn and be educated in many ways.
Man, I always call them interesting. I'll be talking to some of the members of a fraternity that I'm really a part of.
Yeah.
And we talk about being educational elites,
Mm-hmm.
Black educational elites. And I think what happens is that when you get to a certain level of education, actually you possess it as power. And we lessen giving that back to those who may be less fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
And so we become judgmental. Because we've reached this level of education, whether it's the PhDs, whether it's the masters, whether it's the bachelors, and we think it's a little different. I call them academic educational elites. And sadly, they reside right within our community.
Yeah.
And what happens is that you can always recognize them because when they talk in conversations, they attempt to talk over our heads or attempt to make you think they're talking over your head as if you can't get it.
Yeah.
Well, when that happens though, Boney, what we're saying to that person is that the education is only valuable to me.
Yeah.
It's not valuable to you. Because as a supposedly educational elite, part of that is giving back.
Yeah.
And so giving back also happens educationally.
I went to Jack Yates High School.
Mm-hmm.
Very proud graduate of Jack Yates High School. Went to Texas Southern as well. But in Yates, I remember, and even more so listening to the stories, because I'm the president of the Alumni Association. I listened to these stories. My grandfather and his brothers and sisters went to Yates. My dad and his brothers and sisters went to Yates. My cousins and I went to Yates. So it was like third generational passed down.
Bless.
But one of the things that I realized is that from an educational standpoint, my dad and my mom, only had a high school diploma.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But I went to school with individuals whose parents were doctors and dentists and lawyers and high-profile business people and community leaders and politicians. And amongst the kids, you really, couldn't tell the difference. It's like everybody was the same almost. But then you did have this speckle of educational or socioeconomic elitism amongst the school. And it's kind of interesting to me because even when you think about these pre-IB or these high-level educational things in the schools, in the high schools, they separate those kids from the quote-unquote regular kids.
So think about what you just said, and that's where this whole piece starts. We create these programs, actually, in our schools that already start this whole separation of who should be educated or who's prepared to be educated. We started with gifted and talented. Now, I'm not going to attack those programs,
Right.
but I've always asked the question, if Boney is gifted and talented, then what am I?
Not gifted and talented.
Not gifted and talented. So early in this process, I sent a message that says these students are gifted and talented, but it's based on what? Because they can solve a math problem at a higher level than this kid
at that time in their life.
At that time in their life.
Yeah.
And so we separate them.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes what we don't understand is the message that's given. And the message that's given is basically saying, like you said, if you're gifted and talent and you're over here in the other class, that we call it the other class,
or the other wing or the other floor.
We separated totally.
Yeah.
We put you a whole different floor. Well, what that does, though, it does send a message, and an unconscious message that we think that it doesn't have an impact.
Yeah.
Well, you now told a kid by virtue of you're not being gifted in talent, the best you can be is average. So there's no push to even be above average.
Yeah.
So then we get concerned. We start talking about high school, about GPAs, and we wonder why this kid, who we think can actually do A/B work, is only getting C's. Because we told that young man or young lady at a very early age that you're average. So we got to change that whole process of how we do. You talked about Yates. Man, that's one of my proud moments. I get to go into Yates High School, recruit those students. But what we've done, though, is that we talk about those social educational elites. We've now separated them, though. So when you talked about going to school with the kids whose parents were business or doctors and lawyers, we've created a way now to separate those students. We send those students, parents now send those students over to the other schools because they think there's a better educated system there.
Yeah.
And I tell students all the time is that if we keep those students there who we claim to be gifted and talented, trust me, the funding and support will come because they want to support what it looks like to be a good product.
So do you believe, because see, a lot of that too is kind of a double-edged sword because they carve out they call the feeder patterns and the lines. And so they expand the lines to now allow students that were zoned to Yates to now go to Lamar, be zoned to Lamar. And then they open up this almost like the college portal for athletes.
Yes.
You know, they allow gifted and talented or whoever to go and pick and choose, if they pick and choose you, to go to another school by choice. And so, of course, like you said, if you put this, apples and orange comparison and say, okay, this is the elite school, where everybody who is talented, gifted, and in quality, can go to this school. But yet, you can go to Yates, or you can go to Worthing, you can go to Madison. But hey, when you want this shiny carrot, this shiny, bell whistle right here.
That's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
And I am supporting, also I'm against it, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I think
you're against.
I'm kind of against it in some way.
Okay.
Even though I can honestly say that my kids went to private school.
Yeah.
But I look back though, that decision, it may have helped them academically, but they also may have lost something culturally. So I think that when we talk about education, we got to talk about embracing the whole aspect of education. So we don't talk about education and academics. We don't talk about education and its cultural significance. And that becomes valuably important. So my kids, they went to private school.
But see, but a lot of mindset, not to cut you off, but a lot of the mindset amongst many African Americans is, especially after this so-called integration that took place in the 60s, is that when you now are able to culturally assimilate with others, then that's education in itself, because now you are able to embrace other cultures.
Yeah, but then what you also lose in that, though, and I'm not against assimilation, I'm not against integration, but what you also lose in that, and we don't understand that, but our kids understand that.
Okay.
They lose their cultural identity. And that's something that can't be replaced. So my son, for an example, went to the University of Oklahoma understanding more about being a part of a private community than he really understood about being a young African-American male. And so I think that's what those schools do. So when we separate, and I also think that you have to start with the each one teach one. That's our philosophy as adults. But it also has to be our philosophy as kids.
So as a parent, and I'm glad, thank you for sharing that and being vulnerable. As a parent of a young black male, as a black kid, what was your decision? Because you made the decision for them to go to private school. So what were you thinking? Because it's not the kid's decision or fault, or if not call it fault, but it's not the kid's choice in most cases. They want to go to X, Y, Z school. So what were you thinking?
Because again, like I told you, when you fall into this educational elitism, you do. You fall into it.
So you fell into that.
Oh, without question. And I'm in higher education. So I know about GPAs and how we select who gets to come to this university or who get those opportunities. So you fall into that mindset and you believe in that I got to increase the opportunity for my son to get these opportunities. And so with that thinking.
Which isn't wrong though, isn't it?
It's not wrong, but what it does though is that when you make those decisions, you got to do the real investigation. And the real investigation said, okay, when I send my son or daughter to this school, my son, for example, a young black male to this school, when he comes out, he gonna deal with real life issues.
Yeah.
Those same friends that was there hugging him in private school will then see him as a competitor when he gets to college.
Yeah.
Has he been prepared for that? Those same students that he run out and play and hang out with on the weekends, they drive their car home, they may never get stopped. Is my son prepared for that?
Yeah.
So those are the cultural identifiables that you have to make sure that's part of that experience. Because if not,
So you believe that by, I'm just asking,
of course,
do you believe that by sending them to public school or a different environment that would have prepared your son a lot more?
Absolutely. I'm gonna tell you why. Because what the public schools bring that doesn't really happen in private school is real diversity.
Okay.
Real diversity. And real diversity, we always talk about diversity from a African American perspective, Hispanic perspective, the diversity. No, real diversity is also about class systems. When I send my son to a private school, he's dealing with a certain class of people that he may not fit in himself. But we all can perpetrate that because you're in that environment.
It's like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, without question. Without question. That's how it happens.
Yeah.
But when you go to a public school, you got real people living real life experiences in real different classes.
Yeah.
That's real diversity.
Yeah. True.
That's real diversity.
Yeah.
That's true diversity. So we got a kid who may be homeless.
Yeah, sleeping in their car.
Yes, dealing with a kid whose parents may be doctors and lawyers. But guess what though? You know what the kids see? Is a friend.
Yeah.
Someone else. They don't make those separations. We make those separations. And that's the same thing we do in the whole understanding of education. We make those separations. So what I feel like is that, yeah, my son got the private school education, prepared him for college, but did it really prepare him for real life? And I think that's the mix and match.
So you're in higher ed. You do national recruitment. You go all over the country.
All over the country, yes, sir.
Going to recruit students, mostly that look like you and I, or minority kids or whatever.
No doubt.
And with that, what are some of the challenges that you see, man? I mean, because mama or daddy want their kid to go to OU. They want them to get a scholarship anywhere.
No doubt.
But you're in their face.
Right.
And they're like, is my child capable and qualified to come to the University of Oklahoma? And in many cases, sometimes you have to say no.
No.
And what are some of the challenges that you see, bro?
The challenges is that I feel like as a community, we start this process too late. What I mean is that if you're calling me going into your senior year, you've missed 3 years of this process. This is a process. So for an example, I tell families all the time is that this process really starts in the 8th grade. Because when you get to high school, a GPA and all those things really matter. But we have so many students, especially in our community, who can't make that transition from middle school to high school, and they have that difficult freshman year. And once those numbers go down, it is so hard to bring those numbers back up. So I always tell my families is that if you really have aspirations of your kid going to one of those top-notch universities or even top any schools, HBCUs, wherever they're going to go, that process has to start earlier. We're starting that process too late. We're starting that process in the junior year. We're taking our kids to go visit campuses and those things. And so what happens is that when I get to you, then I got to look at all of it. I'm just looking at how well you did doing now, your senior year. I'm looking at how you did your freshman year, your sophomore year, your junior year. And for some of those students, that's where the difficulty come about. The light goes on too late that says, this is important to me, this is what I want to do. That's why I try to do as much early outreach programs. Because what I'm telling students is that in 11th grade, you now start looking at how you're going to fund your college experience. So if you're still trying to decide where you're going to college and start just understanding test scores, or if I'm going to college, you're already behind 2 years. Because your junior year, you're trying to find money now. Do my GPA or do what my academic profile puts me in a situation where I can be rewarded.
But you my frat brother. You my friend, my family member, man. You got the position. Hook a brother up.
Hook a brother up, man.
I know my child ain't with everything that that you looking for, but we people, we cool.
And the great thing in my job is that I get to be real. Because what I know is this: parents want their kid to be successful. And I have to help them to define what it means to be successful. Because if I got to break all the rules and do all the things to get your son here, my biggest concern is that will they stay here? Then I feel like I failed you as a family, as a fraternity brother. I failed you because my job, I don't have to deal in numbers. That's the blessing. And what I get to do, I have to deal in numbers. I truly can be passionate about telling you what's real and what's not real. And if I don't think a student has what it takes necessary to come to a place like, oh, you can be successful, I got to tell that family that. Because there is a school for them, or there's whatever they want to do, we can find that. And I will help them through that process. That's the great thing about being in my role. As a community advocate about education, especially educating those who look like us, I'm not just allocated to the University of Oklahoma. Yes, they pay my salary, and I go out and do a good job of recruiting for them. But the blessing in this is helping a young African-American kid find a educational home.
So what are some of the reasons that students don't get the opportunity to go to a school like an OU or any other school?
Not understanding the process, man. And then what I mean by that is that so much has changed in higher education. Thanks to some of the social justice movements, they've changed in how we kind of understand it. So for an example, for a lot of parents, they don't understand text optional. Text optional to me is the biggest win in higher education. Because what it did, it allowed a student to have a choice about those test scores, which we all know, which has all been proven, are culturally, socially, economically disadvantaged.
So we're talking about the SAT test and the ACT test.
Absolutely. They have been a excluder for those who like us for years. And so through the social justice movement, we've been able to, in these colleges, go text optional, meaning that we're going to look at more than just those test scores. You ain't even got to submit them. But the sad part is that because we've been brainwashed about those test scores, I still have families pushing these kids to stress out to take that test. I tell them now, focus on that GPA. Work hard to get that GPA number up. Because the test scores, it's a stressful situation, man. Mm-hmm. And here's what people don't understand. Look at the University of Oklahoma. Now, when we decided to go there, I think 4 years ago now, and the move was definitely, it would open up diversity. It would give students opportunity to come here who would traditionally have been excluded based on test scores. But trust me, the students who take most advantage of text optional admissions are those who don't look like us. Because they always understand the advantages and the processes to get those advantages.
Right.
But we're still trained in how we've been trained.
Yeah.
Go get the SAT, go take that test score. And so we have students sometimes who got great GPAs, but they also submit a test score. Now, if you submit a test score, we got to use it.
Yeah.
We got to use it.
So it could be to your disadvantage.
It's to your disadvantage. And so I try to definitely educate families through presentation, through seminars about what it means to make the right decision about this process.
Let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
Going back to the process and how, you said some people, they delay and things like where they are in the senior year, junior year should have been dealt with early on.
Yes.
Whatnot. But let's talk about the system itself overall.
Let's talk about
there's a lot of brokenness in the system. You have so much dysfunction, so much fractured, educational setups. You have charter schools and you got the private schools and you got the public schools, and everybody's like clamoring for funding and saying that they don't have enough funding, and then you have all of these different setups. But it seems like in the public school system, where the majority of Black and brown children are, especially those that are not of means, those schools have to educate.
Yes.
Or provide an education for those kids, but it seems like it's so broken, and it's seemingly like they don't care to fix it.
And I think that's important. You understand? Yeah. It is systematically planned that way. Sadly, we are part of a community, a society as a whole, who tend to care less for the less fortunate. And so we've created education systems by putting people kind of in their rightful place. Let me explain this.
Yeah, please.
We've created educational systems by putting people in their rightful place. If we don't have much expectations for a community, then why would we invest in an education process to raise those expectations? So that's part of the problem. That's why that system I think is strategically broken. I do. I think it's strategically broken. I think it's strategically designed to make sure that expectations are met. You got to understand when I say expectations are met. Because if I have lower expectations, right, then if you meet those low expectations, this education system has worked. It has truly worked.
Yeah.
And so what we have specifically in the public school system, which is so interesting because so many of us who went off of life and claim to be successful have come through that public educational process. We've come through that process. But in some way, we now are the opponents of that process.
Say that again.
We're the opponents. We argue about public education and why I can't send my kid to public schools.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why the teachers won't go teach in those schools. Because again, when you can't show value, you're asking people who really are teachers, who go into public education, who go into public schools, they truly, in my opinion, they value education.
Yeah.
I'm not saying those who don't value education, but they have such a, because teachers are about a passion.
Yes.
You gotta have a passion for this. And you gotta have this desire and commitment to know that every single day you have the opportunity to make the difference in the life of someone else.
Yes.
And when you take that seriously, where you do it at may not matter as much. It may not matter as much. But what we've done, and we have this process, and like I said, it's about expectation, right? And I feel bad because I go into schools like Yates now. It's my most proudful moment because, see, traditionally we would say that those kids shouldn't go to a place like the University of Oklahoma. But I go there, put them on a bus, take them to OU, put them in a hotel, pay for all their meals for a weekend. Because here's what I believe. We can go to all those same schools and get the best kid who run the fastest and who jump the highest.
Yeah.
Why we can't go to those schools and get the kids who think the best?
Yes.
That's a different process, man. And that's why there's an investment that I personally have made in those schools, whether it's Wheatley, whether it's Yates. I take great pride going to those schools.
Yeah.
Because I get one student to get on that bus to go see the University of Oklahoma and then say, you know, I'm going there. Then I know that one student turns to 3 students, turns to 5 students, turns to 7 students. But sadly, there's so many that's in my role who avoid going to those schools because the expectations are lowered. So the belief is that we don't know if we can get students out of their school who can qualify to attend.
So in advance of even going, they've already made up their mind.
Already made up their mind because the modules and the statistics show us and the trends tell us that it's not time valued, it's time wasted.
What would you consider, or who would you be considered as one of your biggest success stories? As far as a student that you recruited that?
So many. I'm trying to think.
That's good that you have so many.
Yeah, no, not so many like that. I'm just saying that because these students changed my life.
Yeah.
Because when you get connected and become part of this experience and you take them through this process, you're asking them to dream. You ask them to kind of step out on faith. And for some of these students, they haven't really had to deal in faith. And so I'm asking them to do something that some of them like, well, my situation just hasn't shown me that this faith thing is beneficial. So you're asking. So I kind of think of a student in Washington, D.C. And now it's so interesting. This student, he now is an actual author and does movies now in Los Angeles. From inner city high school in Washington, D.C. I went out there to visit. I told him we were going to fly him out there to come see the University of Oklahoma. It was 5 of them. And all 5 put them on a plane, flew them out there. They eventually decided to go to the University of Oklahoma. And it was interesting because when I heard his story, that him and his family was actually living on the street in D.C. But he had a counselor who believed so much in him, and he was what we would consider in higher education a middle-of-the-road student. He didn't have the 4.0 GPA. I think he had him in about a 2.7 GPA. But all he asked for and all he said was, I want an opportunity to show myself. And I was in the blessed situation to be able to provide that young man with that opportunity. I went to OU, graduated. Now he's in Los Angeles, and he's an author and just doing great things.
Yeah.
So those are the stories that Those about journeys.
But having someone like you
Right.
in place to give that opportunity
Right.
is important as well. And you talked about just a second ago, there are people in the role that you have, and then many roles across the world and the globe and the country that maybe even look like you and I that don't see the value in us and don't lift while we climb and do the things that we have to do to create opportunities for others. You know, I think about Sidney Jones, who was the reason I ended up at the University of Oklahoma.
No doubt.
Who was in a position that took a student who was a wayward individual and took a chance on me and you know, gave me an opportunity to get away from the hood and get to the University of Oklahoma on an engineering scholarship through the minority engineering program, MEP program.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all still got that?
Still have it.
Still got the MEP program, and that's how I ended up at the University of Oklahoma. Never wanted to be an engineer, ever, but it was an opportunity to get away and to change my life. It's really, and it did change my life.
That's what it does.
It really did change my life. I didn't know it was going to change my life at that time.
Right.
But the experience was like no other. And you're right about the culturalism. I mean, I grew up in a all African American school. Grew up in the hood. You know, Third Ward, South Park. Number of black folks. You know, had I guess a sliver of white people or non-black people that I dealt with. But at the end of the day, man, going there, the first thing that I did, although I was on a school with about 26,000 people on it, majority being white, it was definitely a change, a culture shock. But I immediately gravitated to the black folks on campus who came from. You talk about diversity.
No doubt.
They came from all over
the country.
I'm talking about New Orleans. I had never really hung with, you know, and just the difference in music, and the difference in culture,
DC go-go,
conversations. DC go-go. I mean, it was just so many different individuals that brought so much in the midst of the diversity of the University of Oklahoma, having whites and Asians and you know, Middle Easterners and Hispanics and whatnot. It's like we were a small sector. You know, less than 5%. You know,
but what it does though, it brings you together. You have a common goal. And the common goal is to prove them wrong. Prove them wrong. Because we know that some question whether or not we should be here. And so what we have to do is stay here.
Right.
And so we can't just show up to the party. We got to be at the party that we really was not really invited to. And we got to start dancing. And so that becomes part of this process. And I think that when students go to schools like that, when there's not many of them, they create this bond. And this bond is built on this common goal.
Right.
We got to prove them wrong.
And speaking of party, you know, I know you're the chair of the Bridge Builder Charity Foundation. I happen to serve on the board of in a great organization that's connected to the greatest fraternity in the entire universe, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, root to the good brothers. But I was going to say, we have a party with a purpose, talking about scholarships, talking about higher education, talking about going to another level. March the 11th. Tell us about it.
Let's talk about it and talk about that great fraternity. Talk about that great fraternity. And the reason why I say this is because in life, you got to find your passions outside of what you do for a living. And so for me, I've just been blessed because Omega Psi Phi and part of its cardinal principles is scholarship. So that's what I do.
Right.
So it kind of helped me with that whole vision about what I want to do in life. It's one of those cardinal principles, man. So understanding that, then having a nonprofit opportunity involved with the Bridge Builder Charitable Foundation, which clearly is designed. Our sole purpose is to find scholarships to make opportunities available for young people who look like us. Because we know that there's a financial burden. There's some who eliminate their whole thought process about going to college or doing things because we've trained them and think it's so much. It's too much.
Right.
You academically gifted, but you may not be financially gifted.
And can't afford it.
And can't afford it. Just can't afford it. So they already see that as a financial burden. And so but we've been able to do as a fraternity, as a charitable foundation, is to say, here's what we're going to do. We're going to help ease that fear. You've already excelled academically. let us reward you and your parents and just give you something to take with you to help bring down that burden off of you. And so it's been a blessing. The Bridgeport Trail Foundation and over 4 years have given away close to $60,000 in scholarships. We even had the first year with retention. We've had students who come through that we've given their scholarship their freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior year because we're so committed to the process. Not just getting you there. How do we keep you there? Except that whereas students got financial difficulties, they can send us a request for funding because the goal is, like I said, the common goal is to graduate you because you're the next generation.
Yeah.
You're going to be the ones that we're dependent on to educate others.
Yes.
And the only way you can educate others is that you get that piece of that education yourself. So it's built in the philosophy of each one teach one, man. And so March 11th, we have Mardi Gras with the Qs.
Mardi Gras.
We're gonna bring a little of New Orleans here to Houston.
Yeah.
Just a great time.
It's not
right
the first time.
And the first time, man.
Yeah,
This is
this is an annual.
This is an annual event. Annual event. You know, we haven't been able to have it for the past 2 years because of COVID, man. But it's the return.
Yeah.
It's the return of Mardi Gras with the Qs. So
like no other.
Like no other, man. We've moved up. We've now we're at the Humble Civic Center.
Wow.
So you know we're doing it big now.
Yeah.
We're at the Humble Civic Center. Looking at selling over 100 tables. We already have met 70% of that right now. So and more importantly, though, the tables are going fast.
And we're looking for sponsors.
Always. We're looking for sponsors. We want, again, if you are a company out there or a business or an individual who are committed to this whole thing about educating those who look like us and providing opportunity, we want you to be a part of this experience.
Yeah.
We want you to put your name on this and say, it's not just supporting Mardi Gras with the Qs. It's about, you're about to make a difference in a young person's life.
$60,000 in scholarships over 4 years
Yes.
is a phenomenal feat,
Yeah.
man. And like you say, the retention aspect of year after year, not only seeing them get a scholarship to go to college, but to finish. And to finish strong, man. And it is indicative of that scholarship principle, the principle of scholarship as part of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. But I really thank you so much for being here today, for schooling and educating us about the importance and the significance of education in our community, in our society. I'm definitely going to have you back. And how can people, first of all, find out more about the Mardi Gras with the Qs event and contributing or potentially being a sponsor?
I'm going to give my website.
All right.
Our website. You go to bbcfinc.org. I'm going to say it again.
One more time.
bbcfinc.org.
Okay.
You go to the website, you're going to see you're going to get to be introduced to some of the lives we have touched by those who participate in programs in the past, but also you got the Mardi Gras link on there.
Yeah.
And you can get opportunity to buy. We sell individual tickets. You can buy tables, but again,
but you don't want to miss it.
You do not want to miss it.
Outside of giving to the you partying truly with a purpose.
You party with a purpose.
But it is a party.
It is a party. Let me be clear. So it is a party with the brothers.
It is a party.
So you already know.
It is a significant
if you go when they say Mardi Gras with the Qs, make sure you understand part of that process is the Qs. We're gonna be out there having a real good time. Right. Atomic Dog gonna come on one time and we're gonna march around that place. So if you're looking for a really good time, right now we're talking, like I said, we're talking about 100 tables of 10. So we're talking about 1,000 people being in the Humble Civic Center.
Yeah.
Who could never thought of this 3 years ago?
Wow.
But because of the community and those who have supported us in the past, we've able to move at this level right here. So I'm telling you now, if you're looking for a good time and you really want to go out there and we use our frat lane, you want to kick it with the Qs.
Yeah.
Come on out to Mardi Gras.
Amen.
It's going to be a great time.
Yes.
All right, so we do have a couple of questions. Well, actually a question and a statement. That's pretty awesome, the conversation that's being had. But Sandra Lewis says, does the STAR test assist in keeping children in the rightful place?
That's a great question, but I'm against those tests. I do, because I think what happens is that those tests, again, based on what others' expectations are about kids. And so we are such a testing community. We do everything, we test. And sadly, what's happening is that we miss the real education. So our students aren't really learning. They're really only preparing for a test. And that's why when they leave this place and they go off and do other things, they got to be retrained because we haven't really taught them. We've only prepared them to take a test. So, no, I don't. I think the STAR test is one of those, to me, standard tests that we give students, and then we start making predictions about where they are educationally.
Also, we have Latricia Williams said minority to majority scholarships are life-changing to those students that take advantage of the opportunity. What are some of the changes you've seen?
That is so important because I tell my students all the time, in your junior year, you got to go on what's called scholarship hunt. You're going to set aside Instagram and those Twitters, and that time I always evaluate the time you spend on those social networks. If you invest just half that time on seeking scholarships, you can fund your education. You can absolutely fund your education. And it's interesting too because you have schools who still do kind of what we call minority scholarship. They kind of dress it up because there's such an attack on the whole affirmative action piece and whether or not we are being biased towards students who basically have been disadvantaged all their life, but now we want to be concerned about whether or not we've given them advantages. So that's an interesting concept there. But we definitely tell these parents that there are so many scholarships out there. One of the ones I tell families about all the time, and I hope they listen to me, it's called the Gates Millennium Scholarship, man. The Gates Millennium Scholarship is a fund created by Bill and Melinda Gates. They will pay for a student's education all the way through their PhD.
Wow.
They will pay everything. It is one of the top scholarships nationally in the world. And sadly, it's designed, though, that if you don't complete the application is long. The application is about 14 pages, but the application is part of the weed-out process.
Yeah. It's
part of the weed-out process. I've been a reader for Gates I've done it 3 years, but it is unbelievable. So, right, it's a weed-out process. So we know that when students first click it on and they open it up and it says 1 of 14, the thought is, not going to do it. And so I tell these parents, it's called the Gates Millennium Scholarship. It is one of the top scholarships, and it's geared towards students who look like us, who are from different class systems. They do it on GPA now, just like test option, they do it on GPA, not just a test score. So those are the type of scholarships out here in Houston. Houston, you got the Jones Scholarship, you got the Rodeo Scholarship. There are just so many. There's so many opportunities out there. BBCF scholarship. Yeah. All these fraternities and royalties, they do scholarship, but we got to get on that path of seeking those opportunities.
Is there like a website, like a centralized website for people to go to for all these scholarships?
And it's not. And that's what makes it difficult. Yeah. And you kind of have that old Google search and put it in there, and they start coming up. But there's not like a centralized web. But many colleges, the universities, like for example, you go to our website. We're going to have a list on our website of all the different diversity scholarships that students. They're national scholarships all over the country. And sometimes colleges will have those listed, but it's just really about going to that Google search, whatever it is, and you're going to have to
do your own due diligence.
Do due diligence, man. And
that's a great segue to that last statement. From Charlotte Davis. She said, remember that one's work ethic in school also separates one student from another. They can be equally smart as each other, but the workhorse will strive to achieve more.
That is, think about that comment right there, because that, again, that's part of that whole education piece right there, that work ethic. But again, what we got to make sure though is that we're not limiting one's work ethic, because we make this decision about where they are. So I always tell these students that, trust me, I'll tell them all the time, give me a 3.6 student who had to work a part-time job because that student has done real life work already. So I know that student will come to a university and understand the importance of being there. Yeah. Sometimes I struggle with my 4.0 students because they've always been academically successful. They get to college and then they're being challenged and everybody else around them. It's just like athletics. You've been a 5-star football player all your life. Then you get to a place like OU, Texas, and now everybody's a 5-star.
And you third string.
Right. And you can handle it. And what we've done, we've given them an out now with this whole transfer portal. I believe students may go where they want to go, but we've given them an out. Right. And so it happens the same way academically. You've been that academic star. You're academically gifted. When you get into a university setting, and a lot of the students are academically gifted. Yeah. And you don't feel that's where that work ethic comes in.
You don't feel like the superstar.
You don't feel like the superstar no more. That we did, and we made you gifted and talented.
And everybody gave you all the attention.
Right. Since you
was the valedictorian, the salutatorian here.
You was great. Then you get over here and you realize everybody's valedictorian, salutatorian. So now you got to be able to adjust. And I think that's where that work ethic comes in, because you know that we can't just be good. We have to be better. And so if you've been able to make it just being good, you will never understand what it means to be better.
And you know what? You brought up something significant because of there are a lot of people who've had to do other things. You know, sometimes it's family structure. You know, you had to take care of your little brothers and raise your little brothers and sisters while mom, maybe it was a single family home, and, you know, mom worked 2-3 jobs or whatever. And then, you know, I mean, there's a lot of circumstances that cause you to have to go get, like you said, get a part-time job, or to take on other responsibilities, and to be able to continue with your education and be successful. You know, it ain't always just about the 4.0, you know, as the target, or you know, I guess they got so many different grade point averages now, 5.0,
6.0. You got here in Texas. Texas, you go
explain that.
Texas.
There's something significant that you had shared with me once before about the difference between the GPAs and how the schools look at it when it comes to scholarship.
It's an interesting
you think
concept.
That you got this 6.0, like that's so much better than the 4.0, but in the scheme of things,
you're gonna give you recalculated.
Right. Explain that.
And let me explain it to you, man. It's Texas, because Texas have so many different GPA scales. You can go all the way to 7.0. There's some schools that have 7.0 GPA scales. But what happens in that is it doesn't give a student the real true value of what their actual grade is.
But they may be thinking,
they think. So for an example, when they're going to apply to schools outside of Texas, what's going to happen is that their GPA going to be recalculated to a 4.0. So you're saying, well, I'm already good. I got a 7.0. Well, you get to recalculate, that may be a 3.3 based on your 6.7 on that 7.0 scale. So
why do they do that? Like, I mean,
because here's the difference. Because Texas is what we consider a percentile state. Admission process.
Okay.
So, for example, to go to UT, I think it's top 7% or top 6%. So they're looking more at the class ranking. So it doesn't matter what the grading scale is. If you rank number 20, you rank number 20 against everybody else who are on the same grading scale. Whereas when you go outside of Texas, it's based on actual holistic application process. Your GPA, if you submit test scores, it takes in everything. And so here in Texas, 10% rule. So if you graduate 10%, I think you get admitted to most of the schools here in Texas. But I think UT is the only one that may be at the 6 or 7%. I don't know what A&M is exactly, but I think they're part of the 10%. So they don't really have to look at the grading scale that's been used. They look at where you're ranked, because you're going to be automatically admitted. So if you're top 10% at a school that has a 6.0 scale, you top percent, period. You're going to get admitted. That's how it is. And so that's why, but you're not going to go to many states that has as many grading scales as the state of Texas. Yeah,
because I know that I was recently a part of a scholarship process where there were so many variants on the scale, the GPA scale. And in talking to you, as a matter of fact, you were breaking down to me how I'm looking at this thinking this is impressive that you have a 6.3 or a 5.9 or whatever. And you're like, no, really, in the scheme of things, this person is a 3.1 or a 3.3. And I'm like, well, make it make sense. And so, you know, that's why I guess for people that are watching,
because you have what's called,
need to understand.
You have unweighted and weighted.
Yeah.
And most times students get their weighted GPA, because we always speak in weighted and unweighted GPA. But the unweighted GPA is if you're going to be applying for schools outside of Texas, that's what we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, but they need to know that.
You have to know that. And I tell you all the time, because they get fooled by it.
Yeah.
Because they think they have a 4.2, for an example. Well, if you're on a 5.0 scale, that 4.2 is going to equate to almost a 2.9 on a 4.0 scale. So they don't understand why they're getting a waitlist letter from some of the institutions. Well, because they recalculate your GPA. So I tell my students all the time, you have to know what your unweighted GPA is, unless you are just determined you're going to go to school here in Texas that kind of looks at your percentage, top 10%.
And I think a lot of that has to do, and you mentioned this earlier about counselors.
Yeah.
And the significance, like I found out about the OU opportunity through, I had a engaged and involved counselor that wanted to try to give me an opportunity to do something different. And schools don't have quality counselors in their schools that actually care enough to do the due diligence to help them seek for these opportunities and help them break down and understand this weighted versus unweighted or any other thing for that matter.
So let me defend them. I'm gonna defend it. I'm gonna defend my council
Here's your
colleagues.
opportunity.
I'm gonna defend them. I'm gonna defend them.
them.
The reason why, because what we've done is that it's the same thing in college. When families asking like, what's the teacher to professor to student ratio? And I can brag and say it's 17 to 1. Well, you ask yourself, what's the student to counselor ratio? Especially in most public schools. Do you know it could be 100, 130, 150 to 1?
Wow.
Do you realize that? So you're asking someone to try to be able to clearly understand, explain all these things to students. I believe they will work. And I like what HISD has done. HISD has put in what's called the college access counselors. So all the HISD schools have counselors that are not actually, they're counselors. They're for college. The college access coordinators, what they're called, and it's a great thing because what it does, it takes some of the burden off counselors. Because see, counselors, we think of what you talk about GPA and test scores, but these counselors also have to deal with real life situations. When a kid come in, they may have been abused or going through those things. You know what I'm saying? And those things can take a whole day. So I got on this side over here, I got these students who worried about the unweighted and weighted GPA, and over here I got students who worried about life and death situations. And so you put all that on one person, and based on the numbers, it makes it very difficult, Bonnie.
Yeah.
So I don't think we've done them any justice by not giving them the necessary resources to be able to talk about text optional, when to submit your test scores, unweighted versus weighted GPAs. Because it isn't that they don't know. It's just that when you start looking at the scheme of things of importance, depending on where you're a counselor at, it may fall down the list, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you one final thing relative to your job, your work. You're a national recruiter.
Right. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned about not having numbers. So there's not a quota or anything. The best of the best is what you're looking at.
And that's a sad thing. And that's why I want to speak to, because some of my colleagues at other universities, they do have quotas. They have numbers they have to meet. And so that's why they can't do what's called wasted value. Like they don't think that this school is going to yield us. Let's talk about that. It's going to yield us the number of students we need to meet the numbers. You follow me? They have to set that school aside. And that's a sad reality. And I know I'm in a blessed situation because I get to go in and recruit individuals. I get to become part of that experience and take them through this whole process.
So how's that measured though? So you talked about wasted value. Is it based off of whether that individual graduates or not, or is it based off of what their GPA is? Like, how do they judge whether they're successful in their job or your job or not?
It's metrics. So basically what happens is that usually if you got a territory, then the school is expecting you to get a certain number of students from that territory.
Okay.
Period. And because again, you gotta understand now, college is definitely designed for higher education. It's a business. And so there has to be a certain number to make sure that we meet to keep the lights on and those things in that aspect right there. So most will get a territory, they have a certain number of kids they gotta get from that territory. So if their statistics have shown that last year we went to, I'm gonna use it just an example, let's say Lamar. Cause I know everybody probably out there talking about, they just talking about Yates. We know there's other schools in HISD, so I want to make sure that I'm kind of showing the love. I know. Some love. So let's use Lamar for an example. Well, if you look at your statistical trends and it shows that you haven't gotten many students out of Lamar, but you know you got to get 300 students out of this territory, Lamar gonna get cut. Because I'd rather go to the Woodlands, where it got me 25, got me 30 students, and try to increase those numbers than going to Lamar and try to get 2 or 3 students. That's what happens, man. And it's a numbers game. There's no doubt it's a numbers game that's played by many in my role, which makes it difficult.
So I have 2 final questions. One, for those that may have children that are in elementary, middle school, what advice would you give parents or students that may be watching, or
No,
parents, or those that are connected to young people as it relates to preparation going into high school? Like, what should they be doing right
That
now?
is early outreach programs. I always tell families this is that you want to get them into a lot of these schools or communities offer different opportunities, camps. They sometimes call them boot camps, academic camps. And I always start out with just put them in academic camps, because sometimes far too early we try to decide what they're going to be for the rest of their life. And we tell them that, so we're going to send you to the engineering camp, for an example. Like you said, you had no idea you ain't want to be an engineer, but we're going to send you to the engineering camp, though, because you may be good at math and science. And I would tell students all the time, with parents, if a kid's going to be successful, they can't just be good at something. They have to be passionate about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we eliminate that passion very early. So I always tell families at a very young age, probably in middle school, you want to start sending them what we call academic camps. Academic camps is going to talk about the whole academic environment, not just about a particular major. Unless you got a kid who you know love the weather, watch the Weather Channel, like the Animal Planet Channel, and they want to be a meteorologist. Okay, then you find no type of camps. But you got to give them that exposure very early. They got to see it. Because I always believe what you can see, you can truly become. So if I can see myself on a college campus, then I have this belief that I can become that. We have to make sure they see it early, though. And so that process for us, because of the way our lives are, because of things that we have going in our life, we've taken and put that expectation on the school system and the counselors. And we've removed that expectation from us.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what these summer opportunities are about.
Okay.
Put them in real camps.
So camps, that's a great suggestion. Also, for those that may be already in, like maybe they are sophomores, juniors,
Right.
Or even seniors.
Correct.
I mean, you say that it's too late in the process, but maybe they do now realize they've turned this corner, the light switch is come on, and they want to go to college. They want to get there, but maybe they don't have the finances, or maybe they don't know anything about how to get there.
So I tell families, you got to sit down, and I call it the real conversation with your kids, because all of us know our situation. And I am a supporter of those who say, I'm going to take the 2-year route first and then go the 4-year route. That's okay. That's okay. But whatever way, you gotta have that conversation to know what route we're going to take. So I always tell families now, if you got a student who's a sophomore, make sure they understand that next year, their junior year, is their senior year in the college process. Let me say it again. Everybody think you have 4 years in high school, you have 3. Why is that? The applications will open for most colleges on August 1, the summer of your junior year. We don't even look at your senior grades.
Wow.
To make admission decisions.
Yeah.
We don't even look at them. So their senior year is actually their junior year. So we think, on a 4-year process, and it's really only 3 years. That's why I say you're behind. Because the application process opened in most colleges on August the 1st of your junior year.
Yeah.
You ain't even started your senior year yet.
Yeah.
And that's when the application process opened.
Wow.
Anytime we're asking for your senior transcripts, that means you probably put on the wait list. Without question. The admission is based on everything you've done up to your junior year.
Yeah.
That's important.
9th, 10th, 11th grade.
That's it.
Wow.
So that's why that 9th grade becomes so important, because you only got 3 years. We don't even ask for your senior grades. You know what we ask for? For you to send us a final transcript to show that you graduated.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
Yes. And so that's why I say the clock for us has started too late.
Yeah.
But we're looking at our sophomore year and our junior, we're starting to just look into college because we think we got what? That senior year.
Right.
No,
I
that
can make it up then.
That senior year should be about going to visit the colleges and deciding how we're going to finance this opportunity.
Now, that could work with athletics, but it definitely can't work with academics.
No, it can't.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, listen, I greatly appreciate you, Cedar. Once again, what's that website for the Mardi Gras with the Q's?
Mardi Gras with the Q's.
Event on March the 11th.
Say it again.
Humble
Yeah.
Civic Center. Mardi Gras with the Q's.
No doubt it's going to be.
March the 11th, Humble Civic Center. And what is that website, sir?
bbcfinc.org. Say it again.
bbcfinc.org.
That's it.
That's the Bridge Builder Charity Foundation's annual Mardi Gras with the Q's event. Third, fourth annual.
It's the third annual.
Third annual Mardi Gras with the Q's event. I'll be there.
I know you'll be there. I know you'll be there. I know you'll be there.
I encourage all of the bros and anybody that's not the bros.
No.
You definitely want to be in the place to be.
Yeah, and understand, as Brother Bonnie said, is that you're partying for a vision.
Yeah.
You're coming out there to enjoy yourself, but understanding as we're enjoying ourselves, you're making a difference.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here, man. Give everybody. What if they want to holler at you about trying to get into OU, man?
Oh, man. I'll give you my email address.
Yeah, give me the
email address is dcdon@ou.edu. And here's the great thing about it. Because this is part of what I do, because I'm passionate about it, you can reach out to me even if you're not trying to go to OU.
Yeah.
If you just got questions about this process, man, this is, like I told you, the real blessing what I get to do, man, is to watch some young person who look like us pursue higher education.
Yeah.
And live that dream.
Absolutely.
Because these kids and family, they all dream.
Yes.
And to be part of that dream, whether it's at OU or whether it's at Prairie View,
Yeah.
I just want to be a part of that.
Well, I had an amazing time at the University of Oklahoma. Met some great friends and built some solid relationships, including you.
Yes.
And of course at Texas Southern as well. But I just want to encourage everybody, if you are seeking or if you have children that want to pursue a higher education, listen to the advice that was given on today and reach out to them if you have any other questions. What's that email address again?
dcdon, D-O-N, @ou.edu.
There you go, y'all. Listen, we're going to get up out of here. Happy New Year's, everybody. Again, hope you had a very Merry Christmas, a Happy Kwanzaa, and of course, a Happy New Year. We got so much to do. You need to, we're going to talk about, just like I wrote about this week in the Forward Times. Go check out forwardtimes.com. It's 2023. It's time for us to have our own Black New Year's resolutions. We'll talk more about that later, y'all. Peace, y'all. Let's go.